In the small town of Bayeux, 400,000 visitors each year flock to the Musée de la Tapisserie de Bayeux, a museum that houses one of the world's most enigmatic and valuable artifacts. Established in 1949, the museum protects a 224-foot-long piece of linen, sewn into a single strip, that has survived for 950 years. This artifact, known as the Bayeux Tapestry, though it is actually an embroidery, contains 632 human figures, 560 animals, 202 horses, 41 ships, and 37 buildings. It is a stunning piece of history, but its true meaning remains a mystery. For centuries, this embroidery was hidden from the world. It wasn't until 1476 that it was rediscovered, and only in the early 19th century did it gain widespread recognition. Since then, it has captivated scholars, visitors, and children around the globe. It's considered a national treasure, but the question remains, whose national treasure is it, and what does it really tell us? The accounts of the events of 1066, the year of the Norman Conquest, were written by the victors. These accounts, often filled with personal and political motivations, are what we call panegyrists, or toadies authors who sought to flatter William the Conqueror and justify the Norman occupation of England. They were the beneficiaries of the conquest, and looking for further rewards, wrote stories that aligned with the conqueror's desires. As a result, these histories often paint the conquest as a good thing. But was it really? It's dangerous to listen to only one side of a dispute, yet we often do. Despite this, I will refer to the Bayeux Tapestry as the tapestry throughout this book, even though it is technically an embroidery. It was found at Bayeux, but it wasn't made there and might not even belong there. Similarly, the Battle of Hastings wasn't actually fought at Hastings. History, it seems, is not always logical. To me, the past is not just a kaleidoscope of events, but a veil that needs to be lifted. The tapestry is a key to understanding this veil. Scholars have pieced together the dynastic and chronological aspects of the main story shown on the tapestry, but the English side of the story is often overlooked. The Normans left us a vast amount of material, but it's difficult to construct the opposite side of the picture. My goal is to uncover this missing piece and provide a fuller understanding of the invasion. The tapestry's margins, the top and bottom borders, are often dismissed as mere decorative elements. However, I believe these margins play a crucial role in the story. They are filled with bright, imaginatively colored birds and animals, some of which are familiar, like ravens and eagles, and others that are fantastical, like griffons and fire-breathing dragons. These images are not just decoration. They are a language that can help us understand the tapestry's deeper meaning. Academics often tell their students that the pleasure of history lies in the changing nature of opinions and theories. Unlike science, history doesn't have facts that are set in stone. My interest in the tapestry lies in these margins, and I believe they contain clues that have been overlooked. Pictures can communicate in ways that words cannot. The fables and scenes depicted in the margins are a point of human contact with our ancestors, and they help us understand the world they lived in. It's often assumed that monasteries were the only centers of learning in the 11th century, but this is not entirely true. The rules in monasteries were strict, and the work was tedious. Many monks were not highly educated, and the practical skills of the time were more important than academic knowledge. The tapestry was a secular artifact, created for a secular audience, and it was designed to be understood by the people who saw it, not just a select few. The fables and images in the margins are not esoteric. They are a common language. They were understood by the masses, not just the educated elite. This is a paradox, but it is also a key to understanding the tapestry. The margins are not just decorative. They are a window into the minds of the people who created and viewed the tapestry. To truly understand the tapestry, we need to think in terms of the world as it was in 1066. We need to think about the cultures that had highly developed languages and pictures, but no written script. We need to think about the people who could not read and write Latin, but had a rich graphic communication. We need to think about the practical, everyday people who witnessed the events of the conquest and recorded them in the tapestry. The tapestry tells three stories: the main frieze, the Latin superscript, and the margins. The main frieze is the obvious story, dictated by the victors. The Latin superscript was intended for a small, select audience. The margins, however, are the story of the common people. They are the forgotten voices of those who were conquered. Without the margins, the other two stories are incomplete. By reading all three stories, we can gain a fuller and more balanced view of the conquest. The margins of the tapestry are a mystery, but they are a mystery that can be solved. They are a language that can be understood, and they hold the key to a deeper understanding of the past. The Bayeux Tapestry is not just a historical artifact. It is a living document that speaks to us across the centuries. It is a story that needs to be told, and the margins are where that story begins. The margins of the Bayeux Tapestry are more than just decorative borders. They are a vital part of the story being told. These margins are filled with a series of images that, while they might seem simple and jolly, are actually rich with meaning. To understand the tapestry fully, we need to learn how to read these images, which were a form of communication for the everyday people of the time. In a world where most people couldn't read or write, images were the primary way to convey stories and messages. Churches were decorated with paintings and sculptures that told biblical stories, and everyday life was filled with symbolic images that everyone could understand. This picture language was a practical and accessible way for people to communicate, much like how we use emojis today to add emotion and context to our messages. The margins of the tapestry use this picture language to provide a running commentary on the main scenes. They are not random or chaotic, but are carefully crafted to enhance the story. For example, if the main scene shows a battle, the margins might include images of animals or figures that represent the chaos and fear of war. If the main scene is a peaceful moment, the margins might show images of nature or everyday life, providing a contrast and adding depth to the narrative. To read the margins, we need to think like the people who created them. We need to forget the modern, linear way of thinking and embrace the layered, symbolic approach that was common in medieval times. This means looking beyond the surface to see the multiple meanings and layers of symbolism in each image. It's like solving a puzzle, where each piece fits together to tell a larger story. For instance, a wyvern, a type of dragon in the margins, might seem like a simple decorative element, but it could also symbolize danger or treachery. A rabbit might represent fertility or speed, and a bird might symbolize freedom or the soul. These images are not just there to fill space. They are part of the story, providing emotional and contextual depth. The margins also help us understand the perspective of the people who made the tapestry. While the main scenes might be a glorified version of history, the margins often tell a different story. They might show the struggles and emotions of the common people, the ones who were affected by the events, but who didn't have a voice in the official histories. The margins are a way for these people to speak, to share their experiences and feelings. The tapestry was likely made in England, possibly in a workshop near Canterbury, and it was completed between 1067 and 1080. This was a time of great change and conflict, and the tapestry reflects this. The main scenes might flatter the Norman conquerors, but the margins often tell a more nuanced and complex story. They show us the real people behind the grand narrative, the ones who lived through the conquest and its aftermath. Understanding the margins is crucial, because they provide a different perspective on the events of 1066. They show us the human side of history, the emotions, and the everyday experiences that are often overlooked in official accounts. By learning to read the margins, we can gain a deeper and more complete understanding of the Bayeux Tapestry and the world it represents. The margins of the Bayeux Tapestry are not just decorative. They tell a story that complements the main narrative. These margins are filled with animals and birds that provide a kind of soundtrack and commentary, often speaking directly to the viewer. The animals and birds are not just there to fill space. They are part of the story, adding layers of meaning and context to the main scenes. The tapestry was designed to be understood by people of all backgrounds, not just the educated elite. The Latin commentary added later is simple and sometimes ambiguous, suggesting that the visual narrative was the primary means of communication. The margins, in particular, were planned from the beginning to enhance the main story, making it accessible and engaging for everyone, from peasants to nobles. In the medieval world, people often saw the natural and supernatural as intertwined. They believed in a world filled with angels, devils, and magical creatures. This world was shaped by religious teachings and the stories told by the church, but it also included elements of rural life and popular superstition. The tapestry reflects this blend of the religious and the everyday, using animals and birds to convey moral and allegorical messages. For example, the tapestry includes depictions of Aesop's fables, which were well-known stories that often had moral lessons. These fables, along with creatures from medieval bestiaries, were used to comment on the main events. Bestiaries were books that described both real and mythical animals, often with moral or religious meanings. The tapestry's animals and birds draw from these sources, but they also show originality, suggesting that the designers had a deep understanding of the natural world and the stories that were part of everyday life. The tapestry's animals and birds are not always easy to identify. Some are clearly recognizable, like ducks and geese, while others, like the big cats, are more ambiguous. Lions with their manes are easy to spot, and often represent nobility. Other big cats, like leopards and tigers, are harder to distinguish, but are often used to represent lower ranks, like knights and sergeants. Stags, horses, and dogs are also recognizable, and are used to convey specific meanings based on their roles in medieval society. When it comes to mythical creatures, the tapestry is more consistent. Dragons, with their 4 legs and ability to breathe fire, are easy to identify. Wyverns, with their 2 legs and knotted tails, are common and often have a Nordic design. These creatures are used to symbolize evil and danger, adding a layer of tension to the story. The tapestry's animals and birds are not just decorative. They are part of a complex narrative that speaks to the viewer in multiple ways. They provide a visual commentary that enhances the main story, making it richer and more engaging. The tapestry is a masterpiece of medieval storytelling, designed to be understood and appreciated by people of all backgrounds, from the most educated to the least literate. It is a window into a world where the natural and the supernatural were intertwined, and where every animal and bird had a story to tell. The tapestry begins with a vertical band of foliage, under which 2 black lions seem to be having a conversation. This scene sets the tone for a story filled with nobility and royalty, hinting at the serious and sometimes dark events to come. The lions, symbols of kings and nobles, stand beneath a grand building, which some scholars think might be the palace at Westminster, but there's no solid proof of this. The palace could be any grand structure, a generic representation of a royal seat. As we follow the story, we see King Edward the Confessor, who appears frail and old, sitting with 2 golden birds at his feet. These birds are likely calidri, mythical creatures that can indicate both life and death. They guard the king, suggesting he is still alive but perhaps in need of a successor. This idea is crucial to the Norman version of events, which claims that Edward offered the throne to Duke William of Normandy. In the tapestry, however, Edward is never shown as having given William the title of king. This detail is important because it challenges the Norman narrative that historians have often accepted. Harold, the future King of England, is shown preparing to leave for France. He prays at Bosham Church before his journey, but the scene is filled with dark omens. Vultures, crows, and other birds of ill fortune hover overhead, and lions are seen biting their own tails. These images suggest that Harold's journey is fraught with danger, and possibly even dishonor. Other birds are shown covering their heads in shame, hinting at the regret or remorse that might follow Harold's actions. Below the main scene, we see a pair of winged centaurs, ancient creatures that are half human and half horse. These centaurs, caught between 2 worlds, could symbolize Harold's own divided nature or his need for guidance. The centaurs have wings for arms, a unique and perhaps symbolic detail that suggests an attempt to depict a deeper meaning rather than a literal creature. As Harold and his men descend the steps to board their ships, the atmosphere seems more hopeful. The lions and birds in the upper margin now appear friendly and noble, but in the lower margin, we see Aesop's fable of the fox and the crow. This fable warns against flattery and suggests that Harold's journey might be based on false promises or wishful thinking. The crow drops its cheese into the fox's mouth, a metaphor for someone being deceived by smooth talk. The next fable shown is that of the fox and the lion, where the fox becomes less cautious after meeting the lion a second time. This could mean that Harold, having visited Normandy before, is underestimating the danger this time around. He seems to be acting confidently, perhaps too confidently. The tapestry then shows a cave where animals are hiding from the lion, a wise move that suggests Harold should have been more cautious. This is followed by the fable of the crane and the wolf, where the crane helps the wolf but receives no reward. This could be a warning that Harold should not expect special treatment or rewards for favors he might think he has done. As Harold's ships set sail, we see more ominous signs. Pards, fierce creatures, are shown either licking or biting their own genitals, a reference to the beaver's desperate act of self-mutilation to escape hunters. This could be a warning to Harold's companions that they are in grave danger and should be prepared for the worst. Harold's ship is loaded with hawks and hounds, valuable gifts that suggest he is planning to visit someone important. These gifts might be intended to win favor or form an alliance. However, when Harold returns to England, the hawks and hounds are not with him, hinting that something significant happened during his journey. The tapestry uses these animals and fables to create a rich, layered narrative that goes beyond simple decoration. Each image and creature carries a deeper meaning, inviting the viewer to interpret the story on multiple levels. The animals serve as a kind of emotional soundtrack, reflecting the moods and tensions of the events being depicted. The Bayeux Tapestry tells a complex story, rich with symbolism and hidden meanings. The scene shifts from the sick lion, perhaps representing King Edward, to Harold's journey across the sea. The ships in the tapestry are detailed and reveal the expertise of the embroiderers, who seem to have had a deep understanding of sailing. Harold's ships are depicted with full sails, suggesting a favorable wind, but the story hints at a more complicated journey. The tapestry shows Harold steering one of the ships, but it's unclear which one is his. The ships are distinct, and the crew's actions suggest they are navigating carefully, possibly facing challenging weather. When Harold lands in France, he is immediately arrested by Guy of Ponthieu. This arrest is puzzling, as Harold was on a mission from King Edward. The tapestry suggests that there might have been more to Harold's journey than a simple diplomatic mission. The margins are filled with animals and scenes that hint at deeper meanings. For example, a bird taking flight might indicate a marshy or estuarine landing, and the presence of a goat could symbolize Harold's innocence or a hidden threat. The tapestry also shows agricultural scenes such as plowing and sowing, indicating the passage of time. These scenes are unique and provide evidence of medieval farming practices, including the use of horses and horse collars. The tapestry's detailed depiction of these activities suggests that the embroiderers were familiar with rural life. Duke William, upon hearing of Harold's detention, sends messengers to Guy. The messengers are depicted with distinct armor and weapons, hinting at their elite status. The scene is rich with symbolism, including female centaurs and a muzzled bear, which could represent the power dynamics between Harold, Guy, and William. The tapestry suggests that Harold might have been a pawn in a larger game of power and politics. When Harold is brought to William, the tapestry shows them both with hawks on their fists, symbolizing peaceful nobility. However, the presence of vultures and wyverns suggests that Harold might be bringing some scandalous news. The scene is filled with animals that symbolize various qualities, such as strength, wisdom, and nobility. William is flattered by the imagery, and the tapestry portrays him as a powerful and well-defended ruler. As winter sets in, Harold remains in William's court, where he tells his story. The margins show a man preparing a board, suggesting that Harold's tale is well-crafted and possibly vulgar. The audience, represented by animated pards, seems to enjoy the performance. The tapestry's detailed narrative and rich symbolism suggest that it was designed to convey a complex and nuanced story, one that goes beyond the simple events of Harold's journey and detention. The Bayeux Tapestry, with its intricate details and symbolic imagery, provides a window into the medieval world, revealing the tensions, politics, and daily life of the time. It is a testament to the skill and knowledge of the embroiderers, who captured a moment in history that continues to fascinate and intrigue us today.